Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marianne Howard, and I'm the Director of Visitor Experience at the East Hampton Historical Society. And I have made the majority of my career working in museums. And today we're going to talk all about museums and how you can create one at your home. So first, what is a museum? A museum is a building in which objects of historical, scientific, artistic, or cultural interest are stored and exhibited. Okay, so that's a lot of information. We're going to break it down a little bit. Museum is one place. For example, the East Hampton Historical Society has 5 sites, but each individual site is its own museum. You may have visited Mulford Farmhouse or the East Hampton Marine Museum or Clinton Academy or the Osborne Jackson House or the Thomas and Mary Nimmo Moran Studio. Each of these buildings is its own museum, has its own display of objects, and can each be visited by you. I'm just looking. Hi, Meadows. Hi. Museums have objects in them. And so those objects can be paintings, sculptures, furniture, parts of a house like a banister or a floor, taxidermy like a skeleton, old stuff, new stuff, pretty stuff, and ugly stuff, but there needs to be stuff in it. And the stuff is studied, it's put on display, and it's viewed by people. Museums tell a story, and the stuff in museums isn't just stuff. The objects are laid out in such a way so that people who go and look at them see the objects and are given information to create a story about them. And when we go to museums, we may see objects that we have a connection to, and that may help us remember our visit there. And that's exactly the point of a modern day museum, to help our visitors make connections to the objects that we see. The objects in the museums they are stored in are for everyone. Okay, so what's one museum you visited? You can type your answer in the comment box there. And if you visited a lot of museums, you can let us know your favorite one and what city or town it's in. Do you want to know mine? It's a museum called Sonnenberg Gardens, and it's in Canandaigua, New York, and I visited there last fall. So there's a lot of different types of museums. There's art, history, geology, which is the study of rocks, natural history, maritime, children's museums, nature centers, science museums, agricultural museums, and even zoos and aquariums are museums. Museums can be found on college campuses, in old houses, in big cities, in small towns, in libraries, and even at the bases of lighthouses. And can you imagine a time when museums didn't exist? Imagine a time when only the wealthy had access to an object that's considered a treasure. Museums started when people began collecting curiosities and showing them to their friends and colleagues. And then these curiosities were then donated to large universities to preserve and show to the public. Now, that's a lot different than it is today because it's not just the wealthy that has the stuff that goes into museums. You have that stuff too. And today, like I said, you're going to create your own museum. So, first, we need to think about the story that we're going to tell. And I'm going to give you 3 options. Is the museum going to be about you and your life? Or is it going to be about your family? Or is it going to be about a collections of items that you have in your room or in your house? I agree, Colette. Outburn is pretty cool too, right? If you want to choose a museum about your life, you can think about some of the major events that happened to you so far. Maybe your birth, your starting school, you having younger brothers or sisters, your friends, any sports you play, trophies you've received, awards, or any instruments that you play, classes that you've taken. Think about all the things that make you you, the special person that you are. For me, that would be my job in East Hampton, my 2 dogs, my love of soccer as a kid, my love of my bike now, the birth of my nieces, the college I went to, my Italian heritage. All these things make me Marianne. And if displayed, the objects associated with these things would tell someone a very long story about my life. And those objects might be my college diploma, maybe some recipe cards of some meals that I like to make, photographs of me and my loved ones, doggy toys, trophies, my name tag from work, those kinds of things. If you wanted to choose a museum about your family, you think about your parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, cousins, family tree, where you came from, where you live, your house, your yard, what you've been going through these past few weeks. And if laid out the objects about your family, maybe an interview with your parents or photographs of your ancestors, Photographs of you and your siblings, traditions that you have together, a copy of your family tree, or a family heirloom would tell someone the story of your family. For me, those objects would be a photograph of my grandparents and a cookbook from a family reunion 25 years ago. If you wanted to choose a collection, you would think about a group of similar objects that you have in your house or your room that mean something to you. It could be rocks, paintings, trophies, or instruments, or maybe a collection of souvenirs that you have from different family vacations. So I've thought about this a lot, and I'm going to create an exhibit about a collection that I have in my house. And that collection is a collection of dolls. And these dolls put together do tell a story about me and my family. Think about it. If you chose to put together a museum of your collection of rocks, the rocks tell stories. Each rock was picked up by you on a certain trip to a certain location with a certain person. Did you go to Atlantic Beach with your father and pick up a rock while you were there last summer? Or did you maybe go to Italy this past fall and pick up a rock from the street when you were there with your class? All the objects in the collection have an individual story, where they came from, and put together tell the story of your life. And as the creator of an exhibit, we need to take the ordinary object, like a rock or a doll, and make sure that we share that human connection and the story to it, to explain why it is that we've saved the object and to explain why it isn't just an ordinary rock or an ordinary doll. So take a few minutes and think about which three topics you want to cover in your museum: the story of you through your life, the story of you through your family, or the story of you through your collection. You don't have to answer now, but maybe start making a list of the items like I did earlier and read aloud to you that you have under each category and see which list would make the most complete story. And after you've thought about what story you want to tell, the story of you or the story of your family or the story of your collection, we're going to work on the objects or the artifacts, the stuff themselves. So I see that there's some debate going on about which museums are the coolest. Mulford Farm, the D'Amico Institute of Art, that's a pretty cool one too. Thanks for sharing. And anybody else who has a favorite museum that they want to share, make sure to type it in that comment box there. So we're going to talk now about my collection, and I'm going to talk to you about the story that I tell through the dolls that I have. So when you think about putting together your story, you're going to lay your objects out and think about when you write a paragraph, how the first sentence in your paragraph is the introduction. The rest of the sentences back up that statement. And then the final sentence reiterates the first one. So that's going to help you write labels for your objects. And we're going to work on the big label, which is called the master label, first. And so in general, your labels should answer the questions who, what, when, where, and why. So to start, think about what you know about each object. I'll go first, and I'm going to tell you what I would write in my master label about my doll collection. So my doll collection once sat at the end of the bed of my great aunt, Regina Canavachel. She and her sister Rosemary lived in a house in Plainview that they purchased in July of 1953. And when I would go over to their house, I would sit at the end of the bed and take a look at the dolls. My understanding is that most of them were purchased by friends who went on trips, and they were given to her as gifts because they knew that she liked dolls. My Aunt Ree, as we used to call her, died in May of 1990, and my Aunt Ro about 20 years later. And when the house was sold, the doll collection was split up between my mother and my sister and her sister, as my great aunts did not have their own children. My mother gave her half to me so that I could start a collection of my own. And I purchased this cabinet in 2010 after I bought my house, and the dolls have lived there ever since. So that's the general story that answers who, my aunts Ree and Ro, my mother, her sister, and me; what, the dolls; when, the time period beginning in 1953 and moving to 2010; where, trips around the world to the house in Plainview to my house; and why. So for me, this exhibit is a combination of nostalgia, happy memories, and family heirlooms, which means that they're items from someone in my family that's passed down from generation to generation and not just thrown away. So after we work on the master label, we work on the nitty-gritty on each object. So I knew all the information about the dolls because I mostly lived it, but I needed some help with the details on each of the dolls' provenance. So what is provenance? The provenance is the time and place of an object's origin, or where it came from. So I'm going to focus here on a subset of my doll collection. So I have these three crocheted dolls that came to me with a note that reads, "These dolls were made for Aunt Ree by her mother, Angelina Canavaccio, in the early 1900s." So I kept this note and I put it underneath the dolls in my cabinet. So sometimes, as museum keepers, we get a lot of notes and stories that go along with objects when they're given to us for safekeeping. But you don't know if you can always believe them. Sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper to find out the true story. So I decided that I needed to go to the source to get some more information. Now, in this day and age of social distancing, I had to conduct an interview in a different kind of way, but I wanted to interview my mother about the subset of dolls. So this is what I had to do. Hi, so my name is Marianne Howard, and I'm on the phone right now with my mom. So, Mom, what's your name and what's today's date?
My name is Angela Della Croce, and today is Monday, April 6th, 2020.
Thanks, Mom. And what's your relationship with Regina Canavaccio?
Regina Canavaccio is my aunt. She was my father's sister.
Great. And then, Mom, what can you tell me about these crocheted dolls?
The crochet dolls were made by Regina's mother, Angelina. They were made for Regina to play with.
Okay. And do you know anything else about them?
I know that Regina cherished them very highly because they were homemade.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome, Marianne.
So this interview is going to help me write a label for my three crochet dolls. Now, I already have my big master label, right? I'm going to go on with the small subordinate label, as we call it, about these three dolls, answering the questions: who, what, when, where, and why. So I would say these three dolls were given to my Aunt Ree by her mother, Angelina Canavaccio. Angelina crocheted these dolls and gave them to her when she was a child so that she could play with them. So now you can do this with all the objects in your collection. Do you want to include a trophy? Who does it belong to? What team were you on when you won it? When did you win it? What was the tournament or championship? And why is it important to you? Do you want to include a photograph? Who's in it? What are the people doing? When was it taken? Where was it taken? So on and so forth. Think about how you are going to conduct your research and the objects that you want more information about. Are you going to interview someone? What questions are you going to ask? What information do you need to know in order to tell your story? So now this spring, I've been asking you to think a lot about primary resources, those that are created by someone at a particular time. A primary resource is an original source that documents an event in time or a person or an idea. Some examples are original research, like a journal article, a diary entry, letters, correspondence, or a photograph. So what primary sources can we use to create research about our artifacts? After you label all of your artifacts, you're going to need to think about how you want to display them. So I have mine in this cabinet. If you're creating your own museum, you might want to sketch out how you're going to guide people through it. How you're going to have them enter it, read your big master panel, and go from place to place, understanding your story. Are you going to put your objects around a room or on a shelf or in a cabinet? Sketch it out. For me, I thought about how these dolls fit into my space. I thought about their sizes, their colors, and which group of dolls fit together, like those three crochet dolls. Now, lastly, you're going to want to have an opening or a celebration of all of your hard work to see that exhibit. And who are you going to invite? How about the people that helped you gain the artifacts, like maybe teammates who helped you win that trophy? Or maybe people that you interviewed for more information, like me, I would invite my mom. And what date is it going to be? Maybe we wait until after social distancing has ended and you have an opening maybe later this summer. And I hope that you'll include us and let us know all the work that you've done. So now at some point, your exhibit or museum is going to close. Why don't you keep your collection of artifacts, your labels, and your museum in a box and then open it up in 1 year or 5 years or 10 years? What will you tell yourself about the exhibit at that time? And how will you set yourself a reminder to go ahead and find it and open it? And can you include a primary source in that time capsule so you'll remember it later? Like take a photograph of your collection, include your labels, include your research. And then moving forward, think about the memories you're making today, the time when you're at home and throughout your life. How will you know what events you're experiencing are the ones that will shape the person you will become? And how will this be passed on to the next generation, like your children? Think about that and how you remember times that you want to remember, holidays, moments with your grandparents. Take a few minutes to take a primary source, take a photograph, or interview someone and keep the recordings and put those away to remember too. So now I think that this stuff is pretty cool, and I hope that you do too. The East Hampton Historical Society has two people on staff who work to create the exhibits, and we're going to be hearing from one of them, John Lore, our curator of collections, later in the week. He's going to tell us about a Hmong embroidered textile story cloth that his aunt made for him. So thanks again for tuning in. In our next batch of Facebook Live programming, we're going to be working on poetry. First up is Paul Revere's Ride by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. So join me next Wednesday, May 13th at 3:30 p.m. as I help you understand this wonderful classic, and we'll read it aloud. And I'll see you soon, East Hampton.